I have never prayed the way I prayed every morning before I went to work while I was doing that show. Like flat on my face on the ground before I would leave my apartment to go walk to work. The times I would worry were, did I say enough? And that was, like, I'm getting teary thinking about it because, like, sorry. That was pretty brutal, but a great example of the media creating their own narrative. Mm-hmm. I mean, they didn't even get it right. You can't really convince people what you want them to know if they aren't willing to listen to it and just don't want to believe it anyway.
Today's guest on the podcast is Candace Cameron-Bure. Candace is an actress, producer, and a talk show panelist known widely for her portrayal of DJ Tanner on TV's Full House and its sequel series, Fuller House. She's also known as the Queen of Christmas, given her many roles in numerous Christmas movies. So Melissa and I grew up watching Candace and remain huge fans of her work to this day. On this episode of the podcast, we discussed a variety of topics with Candace, including her experience growing up as a child actor, the emotional toll of being a panelist on The View, her faith journey, the loss of her close friend Bob Saget, and the legacy that she one day hopes to leave behind. This is New World Old Soul. Thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Without any further ado, here's our conversation with Candace Cameron-Bure. Candace, it's so nice to meet you. Thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thanks for asking me, and it's great to meet you guys.
Absolutely. As children that grew up in the 80s and 90s, we were massive fans. Obviously, we watched a lot of Full House growing up, so it's a total thrill for us to have you here.
Yeah. Thanks. Thank you, guys.
I think Full House hit the air when we were in kindergarten, and we just grew up watching it. So
yeah.
It was always a joke that you were my older sister and then I was the Stephanie. It was like a thing in our family. So we watch you guys religiously.
Oh, well, thanks. I hear that. I've heard that from so many people over the years, but it never gets old. And it's pretty cool to have been part of such an iconic show that is still living on in history today. I mean, we've never been off the air in over 35 years, which is crazy if you had asked me way back in the day.
Yeah, what a blessing.
That it would have just been so popular and carried on through the years. But I'm so proud of being part of the show.
Yeah.
So when people tell me that, I'm like, I love it. I love hearing it.
That's so cool. So when you joined Full House, you were 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And then that went all the way until you were 18. So what was it like growing up and going through? Because 10 to 18 for a girl.
Yeah, very formative years.
Yes.
Yeah. Listen, I mean, I loved it enough that I'm still in the entertainment industry today. It was, we had such a great group of people on the show, truly. I know that there are many, many horror stories, kids that are in the business that have a really bad experience. And, my heart goes out to those people. And yet I'm so grateful for the experience that I had, which wasn't that. It was as great as it could have been. And, it's like I didn't come from a show business family. So even my mom and dad, my brother, who was also on a television show, we have two sisters in between, Melissa and Bridget. We were all kind of just learning what the industry was all about and what it was like being on a television show together.
Yeah.
Yeah, motorcycles. So convenient while doing a podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of thought about that because like there were some embarrassing episodes as far as, and things that they would focus on.
Yeah.
Like breakouts and weight issues and like anything like that. That is so difficult for a young girl. And were there ever episodes where you were just like, I hate this. Like this is such a horrible topic. I don't want to do this. Why?
I mean, some I disliked more than others, but I think you mentioned like I had one where I had to have a zit on my face and it, and then they're like, you're so grateful as a teenager when your face is clear. Then for the makeup artist to have to add a fake zit, I'm like, this is mortifying. This is horrible. But you also know that that's part of the deal. You're learning lessons. That's what each episode was all about. And, it's all wrapped up in a pretty bow by the end of those 30 minutes. And, even as a kid, you understand what it's all about. So you're willing to take the embarrassment because the bigger picture was better. Yeah. I loved going to work every day. I loved the people that I was working with. They were very much like family to me and still are. So, out of we did 196 episodes. And for that many episodes to maybe have 3 or 4 that were a little embarrassing as a teenager, you're like, oh, okay. It's
true.
not so bad.
Yeah, it did have such a nice message, and it did leave you feeling so good, and it was so family friendly. Even though it wasn't a traditional family, it was in a sense because it was family rallying around in a time of need, which is what family should be. Like traditional family doesn't need to be mom and dad and 2.5 kids and a golden retriever, which we just got. But we just got the cliche dog. But it's family being there when family needs each other. And that was such a beautiful example.
That's what the show is all about. And those are the stories that we've heard for years and years from people that have watched the show and loved it. That it was one of the first shows where some families were saying, hey, my grandparents raised me, or aunts and uncles, or my single mom, or, and our family, the Full House family, made them feel like they weren't alone.
Yeah.
That their family wasn't quote unquote traditional. And that was comforting to them. And also people that didn't have strong families, that had difficult ones, they would look to the Full House family and they would like be their surrogate family, in the sense that they go, maybe one day when I'm older, I could have a family like that. I could do things differently. You hear like the sweetest stories from people, how much this show has meant to people. So it's really is cool.
Yeah. It's so impactful. Such a great run. It feels like that's something that's maybe lacking today on network television. Do you think that Full House would have performed as well as it did in today's day and age?
Well, it's a great question. The fact that it's still on and never been off the air in 35 years tells you a lot. It tells you that there's an audience for it that still desires true family programming. And, I've committed myself to family programming for my entire career. It's what I do. But yes, times have changed. They don't look like they did in the 80s or the 90s. So what's considered family friendly today is a very different standard than it was 20 or 30 years ago.
For sure.
And so, you kind of move through the times, but I think it depends what lens you're looking through.
Yes.
But there's always a desire for family content and faith content, which we've all seen, because those truly are the groups that show up and put their money up to support it and speak not only with their words, but with their dollars.
Yes, absolutely. We're grateful for it, for sure.
We are, because we're very protective of what our children watch and the influence that they have. And it's so nice to have networks out there or shows out there. So now we're watching Fuller House, because I actually resisted the show because I was such a Full House fan. I thought, no, because anytime there's a spinoff, it's just not going to be the same, or it's going to be like, I don't know. I resisted it for so long. And then when we found out we were doing this podcast, I'm like, let's watch it, kids. We have binged the entire thing. We're 2 episodes away from the finale. And I was like, we didn't get to the finale. They're probably watching it without me. We're totally obsessed with it. It's so good.
Thank you.
And I think the pendulum swung so much in the other direction, where there was so much propaganda in every cartoon. And you're just like, as a parent, like, why? And then to see like, okay, this is safe. I can walk away and I don't have to worry about what the storyline is going to be. It's so refreshing.
Yeah.
It's a relief.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You guys do a beautiful job. So after Full House, you're 18 years old and you pretty much just move right into the adult world. So what did that look like? It was, you met your husband at 18, correct?
I did. It was actually such an interesting time to have, because I've been working since I was 5 and then on this show for 8 years. And to have finished it at that age really couldn't have been any better, because you're already at that transitional moment in your life. Are you going off to college? Are you going to get married? Do you have a family? Like, am I going to go on to another job? So for me, it was wonderful that it finished at that age. And I had met my husband, who at 18, I met him the last season of that show. And we were engaged a year later. And then at 20, I was married. Or we were married. And then, 2 years later, we had my daughter. So our daughter. I keep saying mine. Our kids are ours.
I do that too.
I do it all the time. He always corrects me, like in the best of ways. And I'm like, 30 years later, you'd think I'd get the hang of it. No, and I still say mine.
We all do it.
We do. He keeps saying we're pregnant right now. And I'm like,
I'm
easy big boy.
That's the one. Yeah. So it was definitely a big transition, but one that I was so happy to make and be a part of. Like, it was delightful. So it took the sting out of ending the show off, because I had met Val and then realized, like, oh, this is now the journey or the path that I'm going on to now be married and have a family. And so I did. I took a 10-year break from the industry to stay home and raise the kids. And my husband's a professional hockey player. And, one of us wanted to be home. We didn't want someone else raising our kids. And so that naturally was going to be me. And I wanted it to be me. But, a professional athlete's on the road half the year. So that made the decision pretty easy. And I'm just so grateful for that time that I stayed home and was with the kids and could really focus on them, and also my relationship with God, because that's where I grew tremendously in my faith. And then when I eventually came back into the industry, I just had a very different perspective, very different viewpoint in why I was going to work.
You guys know that Melissa and I are massive Daily Wire Plus fans, and we had actually heard about Daily Wire for months, but as we told Matt Walsh in a recent podcast that we did with him, we finally decided to join because we wanted to watch his documentary, What is a Woman?
Yeah, What is a Woman was shocking, but it was also so important as it changed a lot of the conversation in culture revolving around gender ideology. If you haven't already seen it, we highly recommend that you go check it out.
So probably much like you, we knew that the Daily Wire Plus offered political podcasts and shows, but it wasn't until we joined that we realized exactly how much the platform had to offer, including groundbreaking documentaries, really great exclusive movies from dramas to comedies, including one of our family's favorites, Lady Ballers, which Matt also made a hilarious cameo in.
Yeah, Lady Ballers was absolutely hilarious. Our entire family was cracking up the whole time, but it also pointed out the absolute absurdity of biological men competing in women's sports.
What we love is that the Daily Wire Plus offers an alternative to the junk on cable and many of the woke platforms out there today. But the best part is that their entertainment is actually good. It's not low budget or corny. They just tackle the most important subjects in a very engaging way.
And the library on the Daily Wire Plus has been growing rapidly. They recently released their first film in theaters called Am I Racist? Starring Matt Walsh. We've been raving about it for weeks, and we were able to dive into it more when we sat down with Matt a few episodes back. But if you happen to miss it in theaters, you'll now be able to watch it on the Daily Wire Plus starting October 28th.
Now, trust us when we tell you it is so worth signing up. And in addition, you'll also get all of their exclusive podcasts, news, other documentaries, movies, and amazing non-agenda driven children's programming as well.
Just click the link down in the description below or go to getdwplus.com/NWOS and use our code AIR, AIR, to save 35% off your annual membership, and let us know what you think of Am I Racist, because we are absolutely confident that you're going to love it. It's kind of amazing how motherhood does that. There's something about the miracle of making life and then watching them grow that brings you so much closer to God.
Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah, I had such the same experience. I grew up in a Christian home, and it felt very generic, I guess, or it's just like what you did. And I believed these things because that's what you believe. But it wasn't until I became an adult and then had my own children and realized the importance of their salvation that you realize this is so important. I need to get right in my own relationship so that I can raise up these little ones.
Exactly. That's exactly what happened to me. I was like, how can I teach my kids about God if I don't really know God personally?
Yeah.
And so then that led me to opening up the Bible and thinking to myself, gosh, I've never really read this book. I've read scripture, I've read passages, I've read some books of the Bible, but I've never really read the Bible.
Yeah.
So I started digging in.
Yeah, it's like then we do that with our kids, and then they kind of have that same feeling of like, whoa, mom and dad have just like,
I know.
But then they have to go experience
a cycle. It's true.
It is. Yeah, I don't know how to change that. But maybe that's just a natural order of things. And then they become grown.
I do think it is a natural order for most of us. But then I will say, like my son Lev, he's the middle child. And all my kids love the Lord. But like Lev has just loved the Lord since he was a little kid. You know, even though you have taught them all the same, we've all done the same, amount of devotionals and Bible reading and going to church and all of that. But I do think that, we're all unique and we're fearfully and wonderfully made, and God's thumbprint is on all of us, and it's different. But, sometimes I think he gives some of us a little extra dose of the Spirit.
Yes,
At young ages.
Yeah.
So
that's our Eli.
Yeah, we have one of those too.
Okay,
Yeah, it is very funny. The kids are all so different.
Yeah.
And it's such a joy to watch that journey with them. But I listened to your daughter Natasha a little bit too, and so it's so fun to hear her speak on that and her own journey. Our oldest is 18.
Okay.
And I was like, you should watch Natasha because she's figured it out now, and our daughter's still figuring it out.
Yeah.
And
I mean, yes, she's figured it out, but she's still figuring it out.
Yes.
I
She's
think
still
she's
young.
just understands now the direction in which she wants to live her life, but doesn't know all the steps, you know, and all the things. And that, I mean, she's still, we all still navigate. It doesn't matter how old we are. We're all still navigating that. But yeah, I very much appreciate Natasha that she's been on my podcast. And she's actually going to be on more in an upcoming season, like a whole lot more.
Oh, neat.
But she's the one that said, I, raised in a Christian family, but I fought against it. And now she's at a place where she's very much embraced it. And she relates to so many people because she's just very open and honest about, she's like, I was a horrible child. Like she just says it. She's like, I was
a little bit
so mean to you guys. And I did all these things. And, lots of parents, we have a strong-willed child if you have multiple kids. And it is nice to be on the other end of it, like outside of it now as a mom going, okay, so you recognize that you were legit a strong-willed child. It wasn't just me going like, thinking I had one, but not really. Natasha was like, no, I was brutal.
Was she your oldest?
Yeah.
There's something about the oldest girls, I think. We were gifted The Strong-Willed Child, that book by my dad. He's like, read this, Melissa, because he's watching our oldest.
I read that book, man.
That's a good one. I was like, we're going to get through this.
Yeah. So your children are adults now. What has that transition been like for you as a mother to see them come into adulthood and just emerge and really become the fully fulfilled version of themselves?
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's so incredible. And whoa.
We got motion lights in here?
No, clapper on. Oh yeah, it is motion lights.
The same thing happened when we were talking to Bethany Hamilton.
I know, the lights kept going out.
I would not have even thought that it's motion sense.
Me either. That's so funny.
Sorry about that. We didn't anticipate that, obviously. So,
second time that's happened
just randomly walk
periodically,
around.
I've seen one of those inflatable wavy arm guys.
So kids coming into adulthood.
It's really incredible. And I want to recognize first that I realize no matter if we're raising our kids up in the Christian faith, we can do the best job that we can do as parents. Not all of them may come to faith. You may have a prodigal son or daughter. I'm grateful that all three of our kids love the Lord, and I would say their walk looks different than each other's, but it is so cool to have adult children who you want to be friends with and they want to be friends with you too. It's the best feeling ever. And that's where I can go back and reflect on the fact that we stayed committed to what our rules, our boundaries, all the things in our home, that there was consistency throughout. And I think that's the one word I use over and over, was the consistency that made the difference. And to see the fruit of that now in their 20s, and that our kids will choose to hang out with us because they don't all live at home anymore, but they're like, hey, what are we doing? Where are we going for dinner? Whose house is dinner at Saturday? It's the best feeling in the world. So there were so many years where we were on repeat, like a broken record. I'm saying, I'm not your friend, I'm your parent. And this is why, this is because of this. This is why we're doing this, because of this. I don't need to be your friend. But then to get to a place where you are friends with your children is awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. It's so reassuring. I love hearing that. 'Cause so much of it sounds familiar.
We're in the trenches right now.
For sure.
Yeah. Our oldest is 18, and then we've got 14, and then we have 12. And then we have
you are
almost 10, and then we have a new one coming in April. So,
oh wow,
yeah, it's my going out of business, baby. They called me geriatric at the doctor. Hurt my feelings real bad.
Oh my goodness,
I know, isn't that rude? That's such a mean term. Yeah, so we had to tell our teenagers that we were.
Wow,
But
congratulations!
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was a surprise. Yeah, so we're kind of just. It's so nice to hear someone else that has adult children because our oldest at 18. I mean, she's a great girl, but there's those moments where they buck back, and it's like this
oh
is
goodness, yeah. There's so many days I didn't think that we were going to make it through.
Yeah.
I'm just like I don't know if it's them or it's me, and I'm a horrible parent, or they just like. Where is their brain? Why are they making these decisions? Lord, am I not honoring you? And yet my prayers aren't answered your mind goes wild and you are in the trenches. And yet God gives us a new day every day. And it's just like, I had to remind myself so many days. And so did my husband that we're like, we're the adult, we're the adult. So we need to stay calm. Yeah. We need to think this through because it's so easy to want to have the knee-jerk reaction, especially when your kids are just trying, towards you. Yep. But you just remain faithful and remain consistent. And God really, he honored it. Yeah. So I know that might come at different times for different families, but there's totally hope.
Yeah. They say train up a child when they're young, and when they are old, they will not depart. My dad would always say that. He'd be like, it doesn't say when they're young, they won't depart.
Exactly.
They'll come back to you.
Old, exactly.
Yeah. He would always make that joke with us. But yeah, I guess we have to remember being a teenager ourselves. But
I know for some reason I'm like, no, I think I was a perfect teenager. I don't remember doing anything bad.
I feel like you probably were. It just seemed like you had it all together. But again, we're watching you on TV.
Exactly. So, exactly.
It's all. Was that kind of weird? So you went from you were acting all the time, you were so busy, and then all of a sudden you're a stay-at-home mom. Was that, even though it's a beautiful time in your life, that's such a massive transition. Yeah. Was that difficult or was it just great?
No, it was difficult. The first few years of that were really hard for me. I felt I just didn't know what my purpose was, even though it was a purpose of motherhood for sure. But because I had been working, I know, sorry guys, there's like lots of motorcycles happening, but we're going to just talk through this. I had been working since I was 5. And so there was, even as an actor, there's applause at the end of the week. You film an episode, there's literally a live studio audience and they're applauding you. Job well done. Work with directors and they're like, great job, Candace. And so my whole childhood was about that. And then when I became a mom, I was like, why is no one applauding me for changing diapers and cooking dinner and doing errands and drop off at school and picking up and sports? And there was nobody to pat me on the back and say, great job, Candace. Because we all know our kids aren't like, Mom, you're the best.
Thanks for driving me.
so much. We love you.
Sometimes you say you're welcome and then still the thank you doesn't come.
Exactly. So that transition was really difficult for me in the beginning. And I was a very self-centered person, and not in a way that I was outwardly egotistical. I just, before you become a parent, your whole life is about yourself. So, and I had nothing to think of but myself. So then at 22 years old, it was like, oh, I'm responsible for a human being and nobody's applauding me. I've just worked my whole life. Everything was a little bit flip-flopped for me. And so it was just a big transition moment. And it was a few years into that. It took me a good 2 to 3 years to really dig into God's word, to really pray over it every day, to listen to God, and to then be like, oh, this is a season of my life, and God has called me to motherhood for this season, and to be intentional about it, that God's going to grow me right now for, not only to raise my children and these little human beings to know who he is, but again, I look back and see the development that he did in my own life. But, at 22 years old, those are like major things in your life. And it's hard to navigate and figure it out. And you can look back in retrospect and you're like, oh, God was doing that. But it seemed pretty overwhelming at that time. And then I was, a couple years into it was kind of like, okay, I like deep breathed into like, this is the season and I'm going to just do it to the best of my ability. Let's go for it. And then felt more comfortable. And it just got amazing as it went on. Truly, I found my place in it, but it took a while.
We really hope you guys are enjoying our chat with Candace. The cool thing is she also happens to be an executive over at Great American Media.
Yeah, Great American Media is your home for quality faith and family entertainment with both a television network, Great American Family, and a streaming service, PureFlix.
This year, Great American Family is bringing you the most original faith and family Christmas content available, offering more meaningful and quality stories than they ever had to celebrate Christmas as it's meant to be.
Yeah, these heartfelt stories will remind you of the faith, hope, and traditions that make Christmas so special. Gather around with your loved ones and let Great American bring the true spirit of Christmas into your home.
For those of you who love the Christmas season, Melissa, on top of just holiday movies, Great American is throwing one of the largest Christmas festivals in the country at the Park at UBS Arena in New York City, starting on November 22nd.
The Great American Family Christmas Festival is an immersive experience the whole family can enjoy, featuring one of New York's most glorious homegrown Christmas trees for festive nightly ceremonies, brilliant Christmas light displays, ice skating, delicious food and beverages by the fire, holiday crafting classes, and photos with Santa.
Ooh, I know him. You can also meet the stars of Great American Family Christmas movies on weekends and enjoy world premiere movie screenings, Q&As, panels, and scheduled photo opportunities.
To experience a celebration of all things Christmas, use the link in our description below to purchase tickets to the Great American Christmas Festival in New York. Or you can try PureFlix absolutely free for 7 days. Just click the link below. Well, what brought you back into acting? What made you make that decision? Like, okay, I'm ready to get back into it.
I never wanted to stop. I've always loved it. So I always prayed that I would go back. But when God really kind of settled my heart, that I finally got to a place that I was like, God, if you're calling me to motherhood and never go back to work in entertainment, I'm okay with that. And I truly was. And in addition to that, I would say, my heart's desire. So if that door ever opens, I would love for that door to open, but you are enough for me. And so I always prayed that. And after my husband retired from hockey, he was home, and then that was the shift in the dynamic. And we had talked about that before his retirement, that like, hey, once you're able to be home, would that be a possibility for me to go back to work? So we talked a lot about that and prayed a lot about it. And then one day we kind of felt like, okay, we're both ready to just see that. And I was like, God, if you're going to open the door, open the door. If not, just close it. Just don't take too long, because I don't want to get my hopes up and then just be disappointed. And I tell you, when I made that call to a couple casting agents and a manager, like, hey, I'm kind of back in. I want to see if anything comes about, if there's any auditions. That first Hallmark movie that I did came so fast. A couple of other television shows came so fast, and that door just was wide open. Wow. And I just started working, and I was like, oh, okay.
Nice.
Thanks, Lord.
Yeah.
Can we talk about your faith journey over time? What does that look like for you? Did you grow up in a Christian home, or is that something that you came into later in life?
It was a little bit of both. My mom was a believer. My dad was not a believer. So my mom always prayed with us 4 kids and talked about God a little bit here and there. But my dad really didn't want religion in our home and thought that religion is something that you can decide on when you're an adult.
Got it.
He didn't have a great experience with it. So, but then my parents had were considering divorcing when I was 12 years old. They went through a really hard time in their marriage. And it was a friend at church that invited them to church and to go through some marital counseling through the church, which my mom was really happy about. And my dad agreed to it because they both wanted to work it out. It was just difficult. And that's when we started going to church for the first time as a family. And that was the first time I'd ever gone to church as a 12-year-old. So I didn't know much about God before that, except that he was just kind of this being in the sky that I could look up to, but I didn't really know anything beyond that. And that's when, I came to faith at 12 years old just by listening to the pastor. And I was like, I want Jesus in my heart. Jesus, Lord and Savior of my life. Yes, I want Jesus. I didn't know what all of that meant. I didn't know what that looked like, how you live that out, but I knew that I wanted that. And my brother had come to faith. My mom was super happy. My sisters came to faith at different times. And eventually my dad came to faith, and he was way after all of us. This was like, my mom prayed for my dad's salvation for 35 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so it wasn't until my dad was older, in his maybe late 50s or 60s or something, maybe 60s when he came to faith. So that's kind of what it looked like. But as a teenager, again, I wasn't like digging into the Bible and going to Bible study. I was actually working on Full House. I wasn't active in, I think I went to youth group a couple of times with the church, but it just wasn't a big part of my life because I was working on the show. And it wasn't until I had Natasha, our firstborn, that was literally the question. I was thinking, well, how are we going to bring them up? Val and I believe in Jesus, but I don't really know what that means. How do I tell that to a child? And then I thought, I actually don't even know God. Mm-hmm. I really don't. I've never read the Bible, and I wouldn't know how to say the most basic thing about Christianity. Like, what is Christianity? Jesus died for my sin. I'm not really a sinner. That's what I thought. I'm like, I'm a pretty good person. Yeah. I'm a good mom. I'm good. I'm not really that bad. So I don't really understand why Jesus died for me.
Right.
And that's when I started digging in. My brother was a big influence in my life too, and had given me a book at the time that was by Ray Comfort. And it talked about, it was called Revival's Golden Key. But it talked about the 10 Commandments, and that God judges us by a different standard than the world standard, which is the 10 Commandments. And the fact is, if we hold ourselves up against the mirror of the 10 Commandments, none of us can live up to it. We all fall short. Have you ever told a lie? Have you honored your father and mother every day of your life? Have you ever stolen anything? I'm like, yeah, man, I stole a pack of gum when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah.
Totally. It doesn't matter how little. And, and the word says, well, if you break even one of them, it's as if you've broken all of them. Yes. And that was when the gospel finally made sense to me. And I go, oh, I am a sinner. Mm-hmm. I never saw it before because I was judging myself by the world standard. I thought, oh, I'm not a drug addict. Mm-hmm. I've even been in entertainment, and I haven't fallen down this dark path. I'm just a pretty good person that's nice to people. Yeah. So why does Jesus need to save me? I believe in Jesus, that he's God, but he doesn't really need to save me. He needs to save worse people than me. Right. And it was understanding then what the law was, and that's the standard by which he judges us. And that's the law that Jesus fulfilled, that he was that perfect sacrifice and died for each and every one of us. I was like, oh, now I understand the gospel message. And it changed my life. From that day forward, it was literally like God pulled the veil off my eyes. And I was like, oh, I get the gospel. Like, I understand it now. And I'm like, Jesus, thank you. And out of gratitude, I was just like, I want to live every day for you. I want to please you. I want to honor you. I didn't even know that there were things that weren't honoring to you. And whatever I can do, I just want to live my life for you. And I've prayed that prayer just about every day of my life. Like, gee, I don't want this fire to go out. And my life is, I'm here because of you. And I want to honor you with my life, and whatever that looks like, I'm here for it.
Amen. Beautiful.
That's beautiful. Yeah. And you do. I mean, you really do have just like this light around you. You have such a kind way of handling the criticism. And we're on the internet too. We see it. We see how vicious people can come at you when you're just speaking from a place of your own morals, and they'll make things political that aren't political. You're like, no, this is I'm standing up for God right now.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, like, why are you meddling in politics? And it's like, no, this has got nothing to do with politics. And it doesn't matter how you try to say it, or that you're really coming from a place of love, they're still going to go after you. So I have watched you handle these situations with such grace. And like when you were on The View, there were times where I'm like yelling at the TV, like, she's being so mean to her, and like we would get heated watching it, and you would just smile and handle it with grace. But how did that feel afterwards when you would leave? Like, did you feel strong in it, or did you ever feel defeated? Like, man, I'm trying so hard here.
Yeah. Doing that show really was interesting. It obviously built up my courage. I have never prayed the way I prayed every morning before I went to work while I was doing that show. Because I was like literally putting on the armor of God, just calling it out on my body every morning, flat on my face on the ground before I would leave my apartment to go walk to work. And yet everyone in there is super nice and friendly. And you see the conversations and the back and forth on screen, and that's all real, but there was very little animosity once that camera was off.
Really?
It's like everyone knows that you're there to do a job and have an opinion. And yet I could walk off and I'm hugging Joy and I'm hugging Whoopi, and we're all just people at the end of the day with different opinions. But I get it. It can get a little mean sometimes at the table. But I think really for me, more than those relationships, because I felt like I left on a good note in terms of relationship with people. But the times I would worry were, did I say enough? And did I represent the Christian well? And that was... I'm getting teary thinking about it because, sorry.
No, you're fine. I'm a crier too. And if you cry, then I'll cry.
Sometimes I cry, sometimes I try not to. Sometimes I cry. Because, we are the ambassadors for Christ. And so when you walk into a room, when you have a discussion with someone, whether it's heated or whether it's super whatever it is, whether you're getting coffee and you're talking with the person behind the counter, you're leaving them the last impression of who a Christian is. And that's like a lot of the burden that weighs on my shoulder. And I'm sure there's a little part of it that is my people-pleasing personality, because to a fault, I know I'm a people pleaser. However, I've gotten better at not, I remind myself all the time that I really only have an audience of one. That's God. But I have to fight that every day. And so when you have those those encounters with people, and like on The View, you walk back to the dressing room and I'm like, did I represent Christ well in that? And that felt heavier to me than just, did I make a good point, or even does someone like me, not like me? It's a heavy burden to bear.
I cannot imagine doing that so publicly and on a daily basis, like you're having to do in that situation. We recently on our podcast, basically we caught a lot of flack for us relative to, the things we're dealing with, caught some flack. And I came on and I also became emotional in saying that, you know what, as long as I'm pleasing God, pleasing my wife, pleasing my kids, my family, Nothing else matters. And it's unfortunate that there are moments where that can be so challenging to really embrace that and remind yourself again that you really only have that audience of one.
Yeah.
And I love hearing that out of you. Thank you for put that out there, because you serve as a great example. I think, you were in the Lions Den there on a daily basis. I can only imagine the stress that you were having to deal with and all the scrutiny that came along with that. So to your credit, you did a beautiful job.
Thank you.
You guys don't need us to tell you that the world has been a really crazy place as of late, which is one of the many reasons that we're so passionate about keeping an emergency food supply kit from My Patriot Supply in our home.
Yeah, storing food in your home is such an important thing to do for peace of mind and reassurance that you're able to actually take care of yourself and your family, which explains why so many people are preparing now. Right now, you can get ready too with a 3-month emergency food supply kit from My Patriot Supply. It comes with delicious foods like creamy stroganoff, honey wheat bread, and mushroom rice pilaf.
And the entire kit offers over 2,000 calories every day, and the food lasts up to 25 years, because who knows what things will look like then, but if and when that day comes, you'll be ready.
So now I know it sounds weird, but emergency food actually makes a really great and unique Christmas gift. Over the past 10 years or so, I have been buying everyone on my list an emergency food pail every holiday season. And now you can too with My Patriot Supply.
Just go to preparewithnws.com now to order your 3-month emergency food kit from My Patriot Supply. That's preparewithnws.com.
And not just at the table, but and that was kind of before social media really took off. Now, now you say something, anyone says something, and now it's it's on Twitter. There's shorts being made about you.
I know. It's so crazy. I have become just like a headline. What am I thinking of? The word when you're clickbait.
Oh.
I've become an easy clickbait headliner. In the dumbest things. Like, I love sharing my life. I mean, you guys share your whole life, and you're just like putting things out there that shouldn't really mean anything.
Yes.
Like, they shouldn't be taken one way or another, only for what it is. And yet somehow I can open up Twitter or X the next day and I'm like, that became a headline.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just like with some small thing that you said. Yeah, I think there was one thing, like when you joined Great American Family, you said something about we're going to focus on traditional relationships or marriages, and that became a thing. And I was like, that's such a simple thing. How does that become? But I started seeing shorts and all kinds of stuff. I'm like, what is this?
I know. It was pretty, that was pretty brutal, but a great example of the media creating their own narrative. I mean, they didn't even get it right.
Yeah.
So excluding things I did say and then using what I did say in a completely different, making up the narrative of what they wanted it to mean. And it's so hard. And it's hard to fight back with those types of things. And I always feel like, it's sometimes better, I think what I'm learning is to just leave it, because you can't really convince people what you want them to know if they aren't willing to listen to it and just don't want to believe it anyway.
Yeah.
So in my defense, I could say, but that's not who I am, and that's not what that meant. And then I could just scream it from the rooftops. And yet, the media doesn't want everyone else to believe that that's it, they want a different narrative, then it doesn't get out there. They don't believe it anyway. And so I'm like, why bother? I'm just going to keep being me, and I'm going to just keep talking to the Lord. And if we're good, then I need to be good.
Nothing else matters.
Yeah. So you worked with Hallmark for 14 years.
Yeah.
You made lots of amazing movies. Yeah. We love all things Christmas.
Thank you.
So I'm excited for your new movies coming out too.
Yeah.
But then when you switched over to Great American Family, there wasn't a lot that I saw said about it. So I think that's where the narrative came from. Do you kind of wish that you had said more about why you were leaving or had more explanation so that people didn't come up with their own narratives?
I think that's what the biggest issue is that I had a full-blown conversation and all of those things were said, but they were all edited.
Oh, okay. It was just little, I only saw like one sentence.
It's like to go into a tagline.
Sentence.
And it's just, again, that's where I'm like, hands up in the
Yeah.
air. I can't fight it. I've said all these things and they literally won't print them. So that's when I just leave it in the Lord's hands. But we are so happy at Great American Family Channel, and I absolutely love working with the network. I'm a part of the network, and that was a big reason too why I moved over there, because I have an executive position at the network, and I'm there helping build this network from the ground up. And we're still a small network. I mean, we need viewership. We are very much growing. And of course, there's other networks we are quote unquote competing with, but we are not, we're still growing.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of all the things that we've done, but we're 4 years into this. So it's not very much time in
it's just a
show
baby.
business.
Yeah.
It's a baby channel. But it's fantastic. And at the network, we focus on faith, family, and country. We're proud of America. We're proud of our families, and we're proud of our faith. So even in our Christmas movies, and listen, I've done so many of them and never even mentioned God or Jesus in so many of my Christmas movies. And that's where I'm like, that's where I want to make a difference, because that's what the reason for the season is.
Right.
Yes.
And we can still fall in love, and we can still be a big city girl and go to the small town and fall in love with our high school boyfriend. And we can have those
Make
fun
the mill
stories.
not close.
Right, yeah, exactly. However, can we see a nativity set? Can we mention and honor Jesus, that this is what Christmas is all about? And that's the difference in the movies and over at the channel. And I love it.
So what can our viewers do to help support what it is that you're doing over there?
Oh my goodness. So much. And we really, really do need the viewership. So there's 2 different platforms. You can watch Great American Family Channel on cable. So I don't know who your cable provider is, but here's the thing. Unfortunately, it's in the highest tiered package on cable. And I understand that that's difficult for a lot of families. We do not want it in the highest tiered package. We want it in basic cable packages. However, because we are an independent channel and we are not owned by one of the big boys like Discovery or Amazon or something like that, they don't give us the option. So they are just putting us in that higher tiered package, and we don't want that cost to go to our viewer. So we're fighting it along with you, but if you are able to afford it, we are so grateful for it and ask that you tune in, because if enough people do, we can't and see that there's a need and a desire for our channel to want more viewership, we would be put into lower packages. And then there is Great American PureFlix, which is streaming. So if you don't have cable, we also have the streaming channel. The content is different, but some of it crosses over and shares. So again, I know people are like, I can't buy another. I already have Netflix. I've got Amazon. I've got
PureFlix is so worth
Max,
it.
all of that. But PureFlix, the majority of it, I mean, all of it's family-based content, a lot of it's faith-forward content. And as we've taken over, we are sorting through all of the titles, adding new ones, throwing out the ones that we don't think are quite, that live up to our standards, because we want quality, great programming on there. So we're continuing to build the PureFlix online streamer with new content. And if you can afford that, we would love to have you on there.
Beautiful. Fantastic. Yeah. I think there's such an appetite for that because it's, like I said, it's lacking, especially on like network television. So it's a great option to have.
Yeah.
Network television is so bad because you can be watching something like Dancing with the Stars, which you get third place on. And you can be watching Dancing with the Stars, and then the next second, it is like, whoa, turn off the TV, and you're running for the remote because it's some X-rated scene. And it's like, what on earth?
I know.
So it's so nice to have something that you don't have to worry about. PureFlix is so great. We have that. We love it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Americans have grown tired and frustrated by the stalling economy, inflation, endless wars, and the relentless assault on our values. Thankfully, there's companies like Patriot Mobile that still believe in America and our Constitution.
That's why we're proud partners with Patriot Mobile, because they are on the front lines fighting for the First and Second Amendments, the sanctity of life, and our military and first responder heroes.
So take a stand and put America first by switching to Patriot Mobile today. You'll get the same nationwide coverage as the big providers because Patriot Mobile operates across all 3 major networks. Plus, they back their service with a coverage guarantee.
Their 100% US-based customer service team will find the best plan for your needs. Keep your number, keep your phone, or upgrade.
Just go to patriotmobile.com/NWOS or call 972-PATRIOT. Right now, get a free month when you use offer code NWOS. Don't get fooled by other providers pretending to share your values or have the same coverage. They don't and they can't. Join us. Switch to America's only Christian conservative mobile provider, Patriot Mobile. Go to patriotmobile.com/NWOS or call 972-PATRIOT for your free month of service today. Can we talk to you about Bob Saget?
Yeah.
What did Bob mean to you? I'm so sorry that you had to experience that
Thank
loss,
you.
by the way.
Thank
I
you.
know that you had a very strong, very genuine bond with your television dad.
Yeah.
So what is it that his life meant to you, and what is it that you hope people remember about Bob in their own lives?
Yeah, Bob was more than a TV dad. He truly was one of my best friends. I was very close with Bob. I mean, really the whole Full House family and Fuller House, but Bob was very special to me. And yeah, we had a good close relationship. I remember the very first time meeting him on the pilot episode, and I was 10 years old, and he just like got down on a knee and he's like, "Hi, I'm Bob and I'm going to be playing your dad." And, I just, however I can, if you want to rehearse scenes together or we can make this more comfortable, I'm here. And he was so sweet and so genuine. And yeah, it was a huge loss for all of us. And Bob, I think what people don't know, well, I hope they know, because Bob had a whole other side of his comedy that once people
We found it.
see that comedy, it's very raunchy. And Bob was a stand-up comedian before Full House, and that was his brand of comedy. So nothing changed in that way. He just became America's dad, TV dad.
Yeah.
And yet he had his comedy well before Full House. So people are the dichotomy of like this really blue, foul comedy and jokes didn't quite line up with the wholesome Full House type.
I sort of loved the hot
character.
and cold though. Like I kind of loved that because he was, and then he was America's
lot of
Funniest
people
Home
did
Videos,
too.
and he's
Yeah.
like, he would slide out.
Yeah.
But then we were watching his comedy. I'm like,
Yeah, I know.
But we love stand up, and a lot of it's raunchy, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
But I kind of loved that there was this shtick he
Yeah.
had, and then there was
Yeah.
what
I
was
think-
he more like in real life?
He was, I would say, I mean, listen, he's was one of the most quick-witted people that I've ever known in my life. So fast with a joke, but he was very much like Danny Tanner, and he would hate that I would say that because he's like, no, that's not me. But Bob was one of the most loving, kind people, and anyone that knows Bob knows that. And it didn't matter how well you knew Bob. If you asked Bob for something, Bob would be the first person to do it. Pick up the phone, call, make it happen. If he could help, he would. And he did that for anyone. And when I say anyone, I go legit. If you just met Bob in the hall and you were like, "Hey, I have a medical issue. Do you know of a doctor?" He would get on his phone and go, yes, let me get that. Or let me get your information. I'm going to send this back to you. Yeah. That was Bob. He always told you that he loved you before. I mean, I talked about that so much after his passing because he would always hug you and he would always say, "I love you." And so that's something like I've made my friends uncomfortable over the last couple of years because I'm like, "I love you. I love you." And some people can get a little weirded out by that. And I'm just like, listen, I'm not telling anyone off the street I love them, but if you're my friend and you've been in my life, I don't want you to walk away and you don't know that I love you. And that's part of the legacy Bob left for me. I knew Bob loved me. Everyone in his life knew that he loved them. And I think that's so important because we don't know the day or the time or the hour that we're going to go. So I want the people who are in my life to know I love them.
Yeah. He left a beautiful legacy behind. Yeah. When we heard about his passing, we were so sad that.
Yeah.
Same thing. America's Funniest Home Videos, all that. Yeah.
I know.
He was funny. He was the best. He really was.
That's really nice to hear about him. That he's just he seemed like that's what he would be like.
Yeah.
He just kind of had that glow around him as
Yeah.
well. So you got to be the Danny on Fuller House. You
Yeah.
were that
Totally.
role. Did you take what you learned as a kid with him and apply that with the little kids? You had the cutest little kiddos that you got to work with.
Oh yeah,
They're
Elias.
so-
Yeah, who played Max?
Oh
And
my gosh.
yeah, all the kids on Fuller House were great. But yeah, it was very much like we knew we were kind of taking on the roles of the guys in Fuller House. So I was Danny, Stephanie was more like the Uncle Jesse, and Kimmy was more like Joey. Yeah, it was fun. There's so many old references to the original show too. But yeah, I could totally tap into Bob and, the cleaning charts and the, all of those kinds of things.
But just as far as like even making the kids feel protected and safe in real life, because Hollywood is kind of if you don't have those adults looking out for the little kids, it can be a scary place. I mean, we all saw Quiet on the Set and all that when that came out, and it really opened our eyes to the industry. And so now you're the adult in the industry.
I mean, in that way, when we started Fuller House, the three of us, Andrea, Jody, and I, talked with all of the kids' parents as well as the kids. But we were like, hey, this is role reversal. I mean, we're not really role reversal because they weren't adults, but
this room.
There we go.
But we're like, we've been there. We know what this is like as a kid. And so we know how to help and how to navigate, but also be professional and all of those things. So whatever questions, whatever there is, we are here for you guys to answer all of those and be on the lookout for you. So yeah, you had three moms shepherding
because
these
you're all
kids,
moms
which are great
in real life.
And their parents were all wonderful, but we would talk to their parents all the time too. And we're like, just ask, man. We want this. We had a great experience. We want all of you guys to have a great experience like we did.
Yeah, because I don't know if it's gotten worse or if it was always, or maybe it's just being revealed now, just the music industry and the acting
It really
industry.
is like show to show.
Yeah.
And that's what I've learned, because there are a lot of child actors who are adults now that also had great experiences. And it's simply the people who were either leading those shows or behind the scenes, there are predators everywhere, no matter where you go, whether it's in school, whether it's in sports, whether it's in your community or your neighborhood or the, person down right next door to you. You don't always know what those predators look like. They don't always look like they are one. And so I would say even within the industry, there's bad people, but there's also really great people.
Yeah.
And it just is who you get paired up with in terms of being an actor.
Kind of lucked out in that regard. You had people looking out for you.
Totally.
Yeah.
But I think about other people in the industry today that I grew up alongside with, like Tia and Tamara Mowry from Sister, who are great and also had like a wonderful experience. And Danica McKellar, she's on the Great American Family Channel. She was on the Wonder Years. She had a great experience.
Jeremy's
That's my
childhood
childhood crush.
Okay, yeah, there you go.
The scene on the swing, I have to hear about it.
Yeah, I know. I was like jealous of that first kiss.
I
Great
know.
show.
See, all the guys liked Winnie Cooper, and then all the girls were like,
Totally.
we're all jealous of Winnie Cooper.
Yes, exactly.
That's so fun.
So there's a lot of, and all of us on Full House, but there are a lot of other shows too where you can talk to those adults now, and they had good experiences, but the bad ones are being revealed, and it's good that they are.
Yes.
But they are pretty horrific stories.
Yeah,
Mhm.
they're
It's
really
unfortunate.
sad.
Yeah.
Last question. We'll get you
Okay.
out of here. So you have accomplished so much in your personal life and professionally. You've kind of done it all. I mean, really, you've
I don't
bounced,
know if I've done
bounced
it all, but
around.
I'm a little machine. I just keep
Been
working.
in the industry a long time. You're also a mother and a wife. If there's one thing that you want people to remember about you, ultimately, when it's all said and done, what would that one thing be?
Oh, could you take a guess?
I have, an inclination, but I'd love to hear it from you.
Listen, I love what I do so much. I love entertaining people. I love producing movies. I love talking, having conversations. And I say that like in regard to the podcast, but at the end of the day, I love Jesus the most. I want to share Jesus with people. I feel like my mission is to help bring people one step closer to Jesus in their walk. And that's it for me. None of the accolades, none of the awards, even the money I make, whatever, I don't get to take it with me. It means nothing at the end of the day. What is going to leave the legacy that, Jesus is the legacy. So I want to share Jesus with everyone, and I want to see everyone in heaven.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Love it.
I think that's great.
All right, we're going to wind this down. For our viewers, though, what do you have going on? What is it you want to plug before we get out of here?
Yeah, we've got some good movies coming up. Oh, and
We
your
do.
movie that you just released. Can you tell us a little bit about that
for
real
Unsung
quick?
Hero?
Yes, Unsung Hero.
So Unsung Hero was a feature film that was out earlier this year, and it did amazing in the box office, which we were so grateful for a Christian film to be successful in the theater. So thank you for all of you who came out and supported it, because it really means a lot. It also shows the big studios that this content is wanted. That's just been released. It's on digital everywhere. It's on Stars. You can watch it now anywhere online, which is so wonderful. So it's called Unsung Hero. I also helped produce the film, and then I have a little part in it too. But it's about for the band For King and Country and their sister Rebecca St. James and their story, their origin story. It's pretty cool, pretty powerful.
Very.
And then Great American Family Channel, which is great. I have 2 brand new movies this Christmas. So one is called A Christmas Less Traveled. That's going to be on November 16th. And then I have a movie called Home Sweet Christmas with Cameron Matheson. And that's going to be on December 1st, the weekend, Thanksgiving weekend. And we also have a really big Christmas festival that is going to be in New York. It's in Long Island at the UBS Arena where the Islanders play. And so this is 5 weeks of a huge family festival. Bring everyone out or come solo, doesn't matter, but this is all outdoors. We've created a whimsical Christmas holiday environment. So you can come out, go ice skating. You can do crafts with your favorite Great American Family actors. We're going to have some premieres of the movies. We'll do Q&As with some of the talent as well. We're going to do a big tree lighting ceremony. You can meet Santa. You can have all kinds of pictures taken and lots of food and beverages. It's just
All
a huge
Christmas
festival. And then alongside that, Great American Family is putting this festival on. So each weekend has different Great American Family actors that'll be there. So I'll be there opening weekend, which is the weekend before Thanksgiving, November 22nd through the 25th. And then the following weekend will be different actors. And some of the people that will be there are Mario Lopez and his wife, Courtney, and Jen Lilly and Jillian Murray and Merritt Patterson, Danica McKellar, she will be there, Trevor Donovan, Karen Matheson, lots of names. So look for what weekend you might want to come, depending on who you want to meet. But it's going to be a really good time.
It's going to be really fun.
And your podcast.
And my podcast.
The
Thanks
Candace
for mentioning
Cameron
that.
Bure podcast.
Yeah, so you can find that anywhere you listen to podcasts. Also on YouTube. This past season, we just aired exclusively on YouTube, which is all about parenting. So if you want to watch those episodes with Natasha, my son Max was also on, and my husband Val was on 2 episodes as well, which was a big treat because Val is not in the public eye whatsoever.
Smart man.
But anyway, all the other seasons and the seasons going forward are all wherever you listen to your podcast.
I like that you really get into you get really real and really raw, and you talk about really important topics and you really dive into them.
Thank you. Yeah, that's the format of my show that one whole season will be dedicated to one topic with one guest host.
Yeah.
So it's 14 weeks of deep diving into one topic. So we've done parenting, we've done emotional health from a biblical worldview. We have done the Trinity with Tara Lee Cobble. That was incredible. Talk about a deep dive. That was really good. So lots of fun stuff. depending on where you are in your life, there's something for you.
Amazing.
So cool.
Yeah.
Well, Candace,
So
thank you
awesome.
so much. Honor to meet you and be able to speak with you. Really
So nice to meet
appreciate
both
it.
of you. Yeah.
All right.
We really
and good luck with
appreciate it.
everything.
We
and
appreciate
your
it.
new
Thank you.
growing family.
Yes.
It's awesome.
Busy time.
Yeah.
Our geriatric baby.
Thanks so much. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome. Bye.
Living in the new world with an whole soul. These rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they all do.